Yes, indeed. As promised, time is now exactly 3:30 and counting. And on the line we have the president for... I do not refer to them as a third party in Jamaica. I refer to them as the alternative to colonialism in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome the president of the UIC, United Independence Congress, President Mr. Joseph Patterson. Greetings and welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawrence. My pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to have you, sir, most definitely. I would like to start off by you introducing yourself, Mr. Patterson, your background, and what led you to start the UIC in Jamaica.
Sure. So I was born in 1971 in Kingston, Jamaica, to a poor single mother. So I grew up facing poverty, like many Jamaicans. And over the course of that process, I learned to overcome poverty and to become a successful chartered accountant and a businessman. I migrated to Canada as a young man with my young wife and returned to Jamaica in 2011. I was quite dissatisfied with the Jamaica I returned to and quite unhappy with what I saw. And what I saw was that after so many years, the two major parties have not been able to bring Jamaica to where it ought to be, but in fact, we've been on a declining trajectory. And so I was committed to finding a solution to fix the problem. And so I spent some time working on developing policies, program, a new system, a new agenda for Jamaica. And that gave birth to the UIC and where we are today.
That sounds great to me. And I must let the audience know that I have been observing you for quite some time now, your social media posts and other things in the regular media. And it is no doubt that the things that you say and your stance resonates with me deeply. And my audience knows me. You're very welcome, sir. And not only me, but the time is also right now for a change in Jamaica. And the audience listening now, they know me. Throughout the years, I've been saying that we need an answer to the colonialistic style of doing things in Jamaica. And here you are, I didn't know you from before. We're not friends or anything like that. But the things that you say deeply resonate with me from the point of view of your anti-colonialism. Could you please explain that, please, and what you have planned for Jamaica from that point of view?
Sure. I mean, first of all, many Jamaicans today are under the mistaken assumption that we have been freed and that we're no longer under the system of colonialism and slavery. And I want to get rid of that myth. Now, obviously, things have changed, or conditions have, would you say, improved. But if you look at how slavery was designed, it had three components: fear, ignorance, and poverty. So you kept the people fearful, you kept them ignorant, and you kept them poor so that they would not challenge you. And so the large majority of a population is used to feed a small minority that lives a high quality, rich life, while the majority lives a poor life. Today, 95% of Jamaicans live below the American poverty line. That's 95%. We have been under self-governance and independence now for 77 years. But from 1838 to 1944, so emancipation 1838 to self-government in 1944, to independence in 1962, to today, we're still under a colonial model, or what I like to call a master-slave economic model, where you have the masters and you have the masses that are supporting the luxurious lifestyle of the majority. So I want to change that. The fear that they use has always been some form of violence. And Jamaica had a violent past in terms of politics. The ignorance that they use is from then back in slavery, you couldn't read or write, so to speak. But today, they simply control the education system and use that to mislead and misdirect the people. They also use the political system. They trick the people into saying that we can vote. But really, all they have done is given us an opportunity to vote for what they put forward as the options. So they divide us into two or more groups to take our minds off the true enemies of our people and distract us with political partisan gimmicks. And then in the process, they control our education, control our economy, control our politics, and lead us down a path of tribalism and poverty while extracting the wealth of the nation. So three parts: division, distraction, and extraction. And when you're poor, and they've done this very well, when you're poor, you find it hard to fight back because you're just trying to live. And they know that. So they've kept Jamaicans very poor and weak so that they cannot have any party that challenges them. The private sector organization of Jamaica funds the two major parties, so they have ample cash to market and communicate to the people. So no so-called third party can ever win under those conditions, because if you don't have the funding, you can't communicate. So what the UIC has done is we have found a different approach of grassroots education and grassroots funding for our movement. So the people have to learn that they have to buy their own party. They have to fund their own party, and they have to get informed on how the system works, and then they have to rise up and bring the change. So we're in that process right now.
That sounds very great. Mr. Patterson, am I to understand that our current leaders from both parties, who you refer to as masters, are our enemies? Let me go further and just ask you a more simplified question in relation to that. Who are these masters really? Are they the local politicians, or are they working for somebody else?
So the way the British were very smart, the colonial masters, which is represented even today in our system of governance by the Queen of England. That's why we have a constitution that does not put the Jamaican people as sovereign, but the Queen of England as sovereign. So she is the head of our country, and through her, she has her backroom master now, which is the Governor General, and then you have the house slaves, which are the Prime Minister and opposition leader and the other 61 members of the House of Representatives, the 21 members of the Senate, and the 228 councillors. They're all there to serve the interest of the colonial masters. So they gave us a constitution that is designed to keep the Jamaican people subjugated while thinking that they're free, while thinking that the system is supposed to be working for them. It continues to work for the colonial masters who are outside of Jamaica, and some who are inside. The inside ones are the ones who sit on the major corporate bodies, the banking sector, the major corporations. They continue to fund the parties, and they fund the continuation of the system that exists. So our politicians are merely middlemen working on behalf of the real masters. And they're doing a very good job of it, of maintaining the status quo of the majority of Jamaicans being fearful, being ignorant, and living in poverty.
Wow, I already knew the answer, and I'm asking you certain questions to draw out the answers out of you. So are you saying in short, are you saying then in short that the Constitution of Jamaica does not represent Jamaicans? And are you saying that we need a new constitution written by the people, for the people, on behalf of the people? So do you intend,
yes,
is the UIC on that path?
Mm-hmm. The UIC has long advocated for, first of all, we identify the problem. The problem is the system, not just the people. So it's not just about Andrew or Mark or PJ or Portia or Bruce Golden or Michael Manley, or even if they wanted to do well, so even if Siaga wanted to do well, the system is designed to defeat him. He can only do bad well. The system supports those who do the wrong things, and it destroys anyone who tries to do the right thing.
Can you slow down, please, right there, sir? I don't mean to cut you there. Please slow down right there, because that, in my opinion, is very, 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 very important. It's not a fight against the JLP or the PNP per se, or Andrew or the other leaders, but it is the system. Emphasize that to me, please. Emphasize that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because the system, you see, sometimes we take for granted, we kind of think that the people we're fighting with or against, or the people who are fighting against us, or enemies, that they do things casually. They don't. They plan carefully. We don't plan carefully as a people. We don't build carefully. We don't have 50-year plans and 5-year and 100-year plans. We have little survival things. So the Constitution we have is deliberately designed to have the kind of checks and balances that brings out the worst in us. So first and foremost, our people, the black people, the people of Jamaica, were not initially divided. If you look at what happened in 1944 and in 1962, in 1944, the Jamaican people had one enemy, the colonial masters. Mm-hmm. They wanted them out. They wanted better living conditions. They wanted better working conditions. They wanted a good and decent life. They did not want to be fighting each other. But the colonial masters told us the way to design a system of politics is one where you divide into subgroups, such as PNP versus JLP, and then you start to fight each other and stop fighting us, your colonial masters. Once they proved that system was workable over 18 years, then they gave us independence in 1962 to make that permanent and enshrine that in the Constitution, so that we will now fight each other vehemently for the next 59 years, which we have done. While being distracted, they then get to pick off our politicians and put them into trade deals and lending deals and grant arrangements that allow them to milk the nation through our bauxite, through our banana, through our sugar, through our coffee, through our tourism product, everything. They design them to rip us off. And we buy into it because to survive as a politician in the system that they have designed, it's easiest for you to sell out your people than to work for your people if you want to win election. Okay? So that system is designed that way. The UIC now will be replacing that system.
And how will the UIC replace that system? I'm very interested to hear. I'm sure the audience would love to know, especially when it comes to the Constitution and stuff like that. I'd interrupted you earlier when you were talking about the Constitution. Please, go ahead, sir.
So we are going to introduce a new Constitution, one that is written by Jamaicans, for Jamaica, to benefit all Jamaicans. This Constitution will be some basic, simple changes, fundamental change. It's going to be a non-partisan constitutional republic. Each of these words have powerful meanings. Non-partisan means we're going to do away with the partisan model of governance. It doesn't mean that you won't have parties anymore. I'm going to show you later on how it will be insignificant, because parties now control who can be your head of government. Parties control who can be a viable candidate for election. Parties controls the flow of money. We're going to turn that on its head by removing big money from the process and allowing even the poorest of person to have equal chance to be elected as the richest of person because of the design that we put in place. So it's going to be non-partisan from that standpoint, the access and the equal treatment of candidates so that they can truly represent their people. Secondly, big money will no longer be able to control them. Thirdly, we're talking about creating a constitutional republic, which means it's run by the rule of law, not by the whims of men. So the rule of law is going to be so codified that the government is put in a straitjacket, which means they have to follow good governance principles no matter what. One of those principles is to clearly define for Jamaicans and for the world to see that the role of government, the primary role of government, is to protect the rights of the individual, not to infringe on them. So what's happening today in Jamaica could not happen under a UIC constitution. The government would be obligated to have an objective, transparent, and inclusive process of addressing the crisis, the COVID crisis. They could not simply mandate and manhandle and abuse the Jamaican people the way that they have, because the Constitution would say that is unequivocally illegal. There will be no provisions for that to happen. Secondarily, it says republic. A republic is a very important form of governance, which people take for granted. They think a republic means not having a queen. Yes, we're going to do away with the queen. Yes, we're going to do away with the governor general. But those are small, those significant and symbolic and even expensive part. For example, the governor general cost us $250 million a year. We can do better with that money somewhere else. But a republic is bigger than that. It's not just a president, and it's not just no queen and no monarchy. A republic is a form of government which absolutely protects the sovereignty of the individual. Meaning, when you are born into this republic, the government at no time at all sees you as anything but its sovereign. You see how they care for the Queen and cherish the Queen and do what is right for the Queen? That's now where you, the citizen, sit. You are the top of the pyramid as a citizen, a sovereign entity, so it cannot violate your life, it cannot violate your liberty, and it cannot violate your property, provided you as an individual do not use force or fraud to violate the life, the liberty, or property of another. So in a UIC system of government, you're going to find that the government has to respect the individual. So you're going to have a safe environment, a clean environment, an orderly environment. You're going to have a situation where the government is more restricted in its activities and more focused on creating the environment for the citizen to achieve their full potential. Finally, the current system we have right now is designed to bring out the worst in people. Our system is designed to bring out the best in all Jamaicans by the incentives that we create in such a system.
Yes, sir. I hear you loud and clear, and I know it can be done because Singapore, I believe, got independence around the same time that Jamaica did, and they are one of the first world leaders right now.
Absolutely.
Based on good governance.
Singapore is a model country. Now, mind you, what we're about to do is far significant. It's going to be more impactful than even Singapore. But let's just look on Singapore for a second. When Jamaica got independence in 1962, Singapore got independence shortly thereafter, 1965. And Singapore and Jamaica in 1965 were almost identical in a number of ways. And Singapore was worse than Jamaica in a number of ways. Here's how they were identical. In terms of GDP per capita, both countries had a GDP per capita, which is your total GDP divided by the number of people in your country. The GDP per capita for Singapore was $550 per person. In Jamaica, it was the same number, 550 per person. Fast forward 25 years later, from that point, the GDP of Singapore was already at 50,000 per person, and Jamaica was somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 per person. Today, Singapore is over 65,000 per person, and Jamaica is between 7,000 and 9,000 per person. Look at the growth trajectory of the two countries. What was different between them? In Singapore, they outlawed corruption. They put laws in place and truly enforced those laws that made political corruption a dangerous thing to engage in. In Jamaica, we continue to flirt with corruption, enshrine corruption, coddle corruption until it becomes a part of our culture. So while in Singapore, the culture there is anti-corrupt, in Jamaica, the culture here is corrupt. And so one, have a very big, expensive government that costs more than it produces, costs more than it delivers to citizens. That's Jamaica. While Singapore has a very cost-effective government that delivers more value than the cost of the government. Singapore is a debt-free country. And what I mean by debt-free is their assets that they have, the assets in both money and producing assets, is greater than their debt. Jamaica, on the other hand, our debt by far outstrips our productive assets. Okay? So Jamaica is in debt. Its people are low in productivity. It is an unsafe environment. And by the way, when Singapore and Jamaica started life, Jamaica had all these assets: bananas, sugar, rum, bauxite, everything. Singapore has none of those assets. The only asset Singapore had is what it developed, and it's its human capital and its strategic location in the world. Just like Jamaica has strategic location and could have developed its human capital. They invested in education to make sure that their children were highly skilled, highly competent, and very intelligent. We in Jamaica did the reverse. They made sure that Singapore was a very safe environment where people can even put down them handbag and come back and find it in the same place. We, on the other hand, our politicians procured and developed a very unsafe environment by investing in gangs and garrisons and building a Jamaica where stealing is better than producing. So very different approaches to governance, the two countries, and we see very different results as a result.
Most definitely, sir. It's my pleasure talking to you. We're talking here with Mr. Joseph Patterson, the president of the UIC, United Independence Congress. And I'd just like to add, if you don't mind, and probably you can add further, that some people might not understand the word republic, although you explained it. But I think a very easy way is to tell people that the greatest country, although going through some problems right now throughout the years, America, the USA, greatest country in the world, is a republic. Correct, sir?
So, yes and no.
Okay.
America was a republic, and over the years it has moved away from that, and that's why you're having so many problems today.
Wow.
So, America started life as a republic which says, we believe in the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of our citizens. So what does that mean? It meant back then that the government was not going to infringe on the life, liberty, or property rights of its citizens, but instead focused on protecting those rights so that the citizens could create, which is why America, in those years, in the 1700s, 1800s, into the early 1900s, and even today, continues to be a world leader in producing new innovations and inventions because the environment was such that it was conducive to persons freely creating and producing. There wasn't many gatekeepers preventing you as there are today. So America flourished. One mistake America made, though, when it became a republic, is that it also continued to engage in the practice of slavery, and then later on segregation, which meant that they didn't get the full capacity of all their people because the republic was more in favor of one class of people and not another. As America got rid of that to a great degree, to the point where you have, recently a black president, more and more of its potential came to the fore. But a true republic have no segregation. A true republic has no classism because none of it is supported by the government. So government would not have any laws that would give any particular class an advantage, any particular race an advantage. It would simply give all citizens equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal protection under the law, and the law would never infringe on the life, liberty, or property rights of their citizens. So America was a great experiment that unfortunately started to move away from its own values, its own ideals, to becoming more and more of a socialist state. And the more America becomes a socialist state, is the more it will move away from republicanism and move more and more into totalitarianism.
I hear you loud and clear, and I think that's a very wonderful explanation. With only less than 5 minutes to go, there are a few questions that I'd love to ask you, but there is one that I must ask. So I'm going to ask it now before, just in case the time runs out and I don't get to ask the rest of the questions. You mentioned, I'm going back to when you talked.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Okay. I see what's happening now. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, that's my apologies on that. Okay, yes, so there is one particular question that I'd love to ask you before you go, even though I have quite a few more, but this one in particular I want to make sure I ask you before, just in case we run out of time. And it's taking us back to when we're talking about those masters, and we use even the word enemies, and the people who uphold colonialism that has implemented this system in Jamaica, which I happen to call a plantocracy. Like Andrew and the opposition, that's what I call those people. They inherited the explantation owners' way of doing things. Sir, you say that you are going up against colonialism. Colonialism and its masters, they are very, very powerful. The world leaders are. They're showing their strong arm even right now as we speak globally. You are one man in Jamaica with a great idea for a party, and you started a party. There are many Jamaicans who are working with what we are calling these global masters, these colonial masters. What is the plan for that to stand up to them? I don't know if I'm asking the question correctly, but I feel led to ask you that question. Is there any fear, or is there any, Or is there a divine plan that you have working with? Marcus Garvey tried, others tried long time ago, and it seems to be going more in the direction of where America is going, the world is, right? Even Jamaica is showing that right now. Give me an answer on that, please. I don't even know how to really ask you the question that I'm trying to ask you.
I fully understand. I mean, what you're talking about is reality, eh?
Yes, sir.
What we're faced with is a great monster. It's a very difficult environment. It's a very difficult task. It's almost impossible. Mm-hmm. But think about this for a second. Mm-hmm. If you came off one of those ships in the 1600s or the 1700s with chains on your hand and feet, mm-hmm. and they drag you to a cane field, and you see the impossible nature of slavery at the time, chattel slavery, the impossible mm-hmm. nature. You could not have predicted that one day you and I would have the freedom to have this conversation without being in chains.
Sir, you don't have
If you were alive in Jamaica mm-hmm. when Nanny was here, you might not predict that you would have a Jamaica that we see in 1962, or Sam Sharp, or Gordon, or Paul Bogle. So I believe strongly in starting and not worrying so much about the ending. I leave the ending result in the hand of a power greater than myself. But I know this for sure. If we do nothing, if we stand for nothing, if we try nothing, then just as our foreparents languished for 400 years in slavery, we may languish yet longer in the modern form of slavery. So my job and your job today is to do our part and then allow Providence to work out the rest. I'm not worried, for example, about them, let's say, assassinating me like they did Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or undermining me like they did Marcus Garvey and,
And I'm sorry, only 30 seconds to go, so I'm very sorry. Continue.
Okay. So in summary, mm-hmm. Never give up. Never give up.
I love your answer, sir. And as I said, I use the word resonate. The things you say and the way you go about things resonate with me, because the answer you just gave about slavery is one of the answers I give when I tell people that it can be done. And I say, hey, remember when we were on the plantation? I even put it like that. I say, remember when we were on the plantation? You were saying that it cannot be done, but I was saying it can be done, and see, we are free today. I thank you very much, sir. I look forward to talking to you again, and there are many other things we could have talked about, but I must go because time is of the essence. I appreciate your time, sir. Yes. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. All the best, sir. Take care.
Thank you very much. Yes, bye-bye. Indeed. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Time for me to pack my bags and get out of here. Do remember to be the change you want to see in the world. Blessed love to you and yours.
It's 11:70 a.m. Davie, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Simulcasting on 107.9 FM, Miami.